Welcome to the March 23rd Select Board meeting. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome to our March 23rd meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on ECAT, our local cable access channel, and is available live and upon demand. This is a hybrid meeting via Zoom, so if you're watching at home and you have a question, please put your question into the Q&A, and remember to include your name and your address for our minutes. And with that, I'll ask the Select Board members to introduce themselves to ensure we have a quorum.
Jamie Stebbins.
Mark Lamb.
Dottie Fulgenetti.
Craig Barger.
And for the record, Jennifer Stacy is not available for our meeting tonight, so she will be absent. We have our interim town administrator, Sean Dugan, our finance director, Wendy Nightingale, and our executive assistant, Elizabeth Hegg. So we're going to jump right into this, and the first item that we have on the agenda is a department head welcome with our new treasurer collector, Diana Lambert. Sean, you want to do the intro?
Sure thing, Dottie. You can join us up here, Diana. I'm pleased to introduce Diana Lambert as our new treasurer collector, and let me say, in municipal finance world, it is very difficult to find a very good treasurer collector, and we have been very fortunate to find one here in Diana. She has a lot of experience both on the public side and the private side. Most recently, she was the assistant treasurer for the city of Newton. Before that, she was assistant treasurer collector in Sharon. She's very deeply involved in her municipal associations. She's both a Mass Municipal Assistant Treasurer and Mass Municipal Assistant Collector, designations that are very, very important to this specific job. And she also has her MBA from Babson and her undergraduate degree from Boston College. And we are so excited to have her. She's already made a very direct and immediate positive impact on the department, and we're so happy to have her with us.
You want to tell us anything?
Thank you.
That's not amplified.
That's
Just for
show.
ECAT recording. Yeah.
Okay. I want to thank you all for having me here this evening. It's been a wonderful experience so far. I started working here at the beginning of the month. I want to thank Sean and Wendy for being so helpful and supportive in the transition. My team has been superb. I really want to thank Peter Vanderhey for keeping the payroll going and doing such a great job, and especially to Brian Mandeville, who acted as the acting treasurer collector in the time after Linda retired and I started working here. So about 6 weeks he was doing dual duty. So I really do appreciate all of his efforts. I actually do have my certified Mass Municipal Treasurer and Mass Municipal Collector now that I'm officially a full treasurer. So the way the association works, the certifications happen after you taking 3 years worth of classes, and then you take an exam. Your certification depends on the job function that you have at the time that you take the exam. So at the time that I took each of the exams, I was an assistant treasurer or an assistant collector. But now that I have the full treasurer collector position, now my designation is now CMMT and CMMC, which I'm very proud of. I'm very active in the association. As Sean mentioned, I teach payroll classes at our school at UMass Amherst every summer, which I'm hoping to continue to do. And everyone in Easton has been wonderful. I've had a terrific welcome. Everyone from John Souza in IT to Todd Texera in DPW. Everyone's been super helpful and just so friendly, and I'm very happy to be here. Happy to answer any questions you might have for me at this time.
Jamie?
Yeah, we're excited to have you. And thanks for the intro. It really set it up nicely. And yeah, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome to the team. You sound very qualified for this role. So we're very fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
And I hope you enjoy your time here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you, Diana. So thanks for coming to Easton.
Thank you.
I don't know if they told you the policy that new hires all have to stay till retirement, so you will notice, though, there's a lot of longevity in our department heads and our staff, because we like to think that Easton is a great place to work, so we hope that you continue to love working with this group, but it is, we have the best leadership and department heads, and Sean we're also very involved in the Mass Municipal Association as well. Mostly Sean, he knows everybody.
Yes.
in the area. So we're really glad to have you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I'll also mention, just to underscore what you had said about Brian, it really is great to have assistant department heads that are able to step up and keep the ship afloat. And I'm not just saying that because I'm one of them. As I was saying that, I'm like, wait, no, I'm just describing myself now. But it is good to have Brian stepped in without question and was able to keep the ship running with 3.5 people. Three people in total. I don't know where the half came from, but big thanks to Brian. He did it with a smile on his face despite a very difficult time of his motor vehicle excise tax collection. He handled it with grace. So thank you to Brian for his work to keep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we just have some announcements. We're going to keep these on the agenda just so that everybody hears about it every time we have a meeting until our election. So Tuesday, April 28th is the annual town election, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's at Oliver Ames High School. That is going to be the election for our local offices as well as an override election. The deadline to register to vote is April 17th. The deadline to apply for a ballot by mail is April 21st. So if you are traveling or you have some reason that you can't physically make it to the polls, it's really important that you get a vote by mail ballot. The annual town meeting is Monday, May 18th. That's at 7 p.m. at Oliver Ames High School. The deadline to register to vote to be able to go to town meeting and vote is May 8th, 2026. So, and that will also include really important things on that, such as the budget. And the next information we have is a potential traffic disruption notice of the Diocese of Fall River's Eucharistic pilgrimage to commemorate USA 250th will be June 29th, 2026. And there will be a procession on the sidewalk moving from Holy Cross Family Ministries, traveling north on Washington and then west on Main Street. So they'll be taking a left by Hilliard's. They've confirmed police details for that intersection on Washington and Main, as well as a portion of Main Street in front of the Immaculate Conception to allow the procession to cross the road safely. A police cruiser has also been secured to accompany the procession during the duration, and the fire department and public works are also aware of the event and have no concerns. We don't think it's going to be majorly disruptive, but it could have 5 people, it could have 50, it could have 100. We're not sure. We don't think it'll be in the thousands, but you never can tell. So we just wanted to let the public know, just to advise them of that. Next, we have licenses and permits. We have a road closure permit for the high school for graduation, which is
June 6th.
June 6th. And we get this road closure every year. Do you want to talk
Sure.
about the details?
Yeah. The Kelly Kavanaugh, who's the principal at Oliver Ames High School, is requesting her annual road closure for Saturday, June 6th. The road closure is between 8 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. and the affected streets would be from Park Street to Hayward to Sheridan, and Sheridan from Daly to Coughlin Road. And then there's a letter in your packet from Principal Kavanaugh for additional details. Our police, fire, and DPW have been notified, and they have no concerns with the request.
Okay. So we need to vote on the road closure.
So I move to approve the road closure for Oliver Ames High School graduation ceremony, June 6, 2026, from 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Streets will be Park Street from Hayward Street to Sheridan Street, and Sheridan Street from Daly Ave to Coughlin Road.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb. All in favor? Unanimous. All right, thank you, Craig. Next, we have a couple of one-day liquor licenses. The first one is for a private party at the Shoveltown Brewery, 50 Oliver Street, March 28th, 2026, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Want to make a motion,
So
Craig?
I'll move to approve the Shoveltown Brewery, 50 Oliver Street private party, March 28th, 2026, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb. All in favor? Unanimous. The next one is the world premiere band concert at the Shoveltown the Shoveltown Brewery is requesting the license for Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, and that's at 3 Barrow Street, May 9th, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. This band is really well known, and tickets will sell out, so they're really a lot of fun. So they played here before, and they have quite a following. So they'll usually have food, appetizers, and of course alcohol, beer and wine for purchase. So if you want to.
Move to approve the world premier band concert, Shoveltown Brewery at Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, 3 Barrel Street, May 9th, 2026, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Second.
It's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. I should have mentioned you can get tickets online through Oaks Ames Hall's website. A discussion and vote for public safety building, Fontaine Brothers, change order number 7.
While Walter and Mitch are getting situated, this is just another one of the change orders that have come up over the past couple of months related to the public safety building project. This one's number 7 in the amount of $32,582. It represents 3.6% of owner contingency, which has been expended, and there's still 96.3% that's held in reserve for known and pending risks. Included in this change order is also an update on where we're at in the public safety project, and there's a presentation that's associated with it that Walter, Mitch, and Greg will take us through.
So before we jump through that, we can go through the PCOs that are associated with this. So we have 7 PCOs that were associated with this change order. We had PCO 50, which was an ASI for bridge conduit revisions. On the drawings, we owned a smaller conduit than was needed, so we had to upsize and add 1 conduit at the bridges. This affected some of the hangars there, so that was the first PCO for $5,100. The second PCO was power outlets at public safety and fire substation mezzanines, some equipment that's going to go up there requiring power not anticipated at the time during design. Those were added up there after consultation of what was going to go up there with fire department. Direct power needed up there as well. So that was $11,500. PCO 59, so it's fire substation firematic discrepancy. Greg, you want to go on that one?
Yeah, so these were just really some minor adjustments to some of the firematic equipment and I think the power associated with it to make sure things were landing in the right spot. So it was, a couple more feet of conduit, a couple more runs of wire, things like that. So relatively minor in terms of cost, but really just aligning everything with the equipment that was purchased in the final buy.
PCO 63 was the App Bay and Sallyport
Oil and grease
separator.
Oil gas separator. Really what this was is we were being a little overly ambitious in design, trying to be as efficient as we could. We had a lot of the interior drains in the building tying into one oil and gas separator. What that did was basically take the waste line out of the building and then back through the building. And when you do that, obviously pipes have pitch, and we were starting to drive the foundation down. So because we didn't have a deeper foundation in that area, we had 2 choices. We could either pay for a deeper foundation, or we could add an oil and gas separator kind of closer to where the drains came out of the building. It made things a little bit easier and it required a lot less excavation. So this was kind of the better choice we had to make at that time.
So that was $6,700. PCO 67 was fire substation and public safety crane electrical revisions. Power not located at the area needed for those cranes in both of those buildings. So that was added for $4,000. PCO 70 was in a response to an RFI. It's for a plumbing fixture that needed to be added that was not owned. For $3,100, and then PR 34 after discussion with, PCO 71 after discussion with Easton Police. Some casework revisions resulted in a minor credit of about $1,000 for removing one to allow for a piece of equipment to go in, a printer specifically to go in, so taking out a piece of casework. So that's the group of PCOs that we have for that change order. Happy to take any questions before we jump to the presentation.
Any questions?
I think the only question, Greg, so the decision on the floor, because once the floor was poured, and now you're talking about plumbing that was going to be manipulated underneath that floor. That would have been before the floor was even poured, right?
Would have been.
Yeah, so Jamie, this stuff happens kind of outside the building, so we would have had to make the decision basically, now to be able to, or when we approve the change to get it outside the building. But what really happens is the drain kind of goes down, and so we would have had to make the decision really when we poured the foundation if we wanted to take the earlier approach, which would have been more costly than this approach.
Right.
Anyway.
That's what it sounds like. This was the lesser.
Yeah, this was kind of the clear answer. In hindsight, we would have loved to have it in there originally, but again, we were trying to be as efficient as possible. We thought we could get it in within the pitches, and just when we started to get things figured out in the field, we said, "Oh boy, we're 6-8 inches too low when we hit the footing, and now we have to make a move." So.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
But you're not thorough explanation. Thank you.
I have a quick question. So when you talk about the percentage and where these are, does this include the fire substation across from Hilliard's, or is this all on the bigger site?
When you say the percentages, do you mean like the 50% of construction time, or do you mean
Yes.
yeah? So that's the entire construction duration. We're much further ahead on fire substation. We're closer to 80%.
Yeah, same when you see the contingency chart update in the presentation,
Yeah.
it's all inclusive of both sites.
Yep.
So both sites with the 3 buildings.
It just seems like a lot of the contingency that we have is really for the bigger site. Is that
It's
true
all-
or not?
It's all as one.
Oh,
It's all
okay.
combined as one.
Okay.
That's why the contracts with Fontaine is as one, and all 3 sites are revolving around that same contingency.
Okay, great.
Yep.
I mean, these numbers are really unbelievable, 3.6%, and I know that the contingency numbers get bigger as you get close to finishing the project, but I think we're in really great shape now for this far along into the job.
Absolutely, we are. We're working through fire substation buyout of FF&E equipment and firematic equipment, so we're healthy on those budgets
Yeah,
too.
which we've already tracked, and we have budget for those, so not from
Okay.
contingency.
Great.
So jumping into the update presentation, if anyone has not seen the monthly report that goes out, it is available on the Facebook page and on the project website. So those get uploaded kind of on the 12th of each month, so we'll make sure this one's up there. Contingency update,
Might have to scroll a little bit.
just scroll a little bit. Is it on full screen?
No.
There we go.
You want to speak to this one, Mitch?
Sure. So overall, it kind of said this in the letter as well, but just to summarize again, we have about 59% of the project has gone by. We've authorized 3.6% of change orders to date. You can see our current exposure has kind of gone up since the last time we met. So we have they're usually a little delayed. We issue documents from the design team. It might have a change in there, and the contractor has to price it and track that down. And so we're getting caught up now. So you can see our current exposures are around 6% with 90% of contingency available. The soft cost contingency and the bid savings is still at a very healthy portion right now with only 2% of change orders spent there. That's about it.
Can you go back to that slide for one quick second,
Yeah.
Mitch? Just explain to me. So I see the change orders are at 6% right now.
Yep.
Current exposure, just explain that 13% again.
So the current exposure is anything that we have open that hasn't turned into a change order.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it'll eventually, you're expecting it to come here.
Yep. So it could be something that the contractor's already pricing or something we're anticipating as a change, and we'll put it in there as an exposure.
Okay.
We want to track everything in real time so that we know the full amount of the exposure to the project contingency on any day.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. I'm gonna have trouble with this thing.
Yeah, I know it's trying to
I don't
scroll.
know. Yeah, I don't know if I can. I'm gonna let you click through.
If you put it full screen, it will allow us to switch.
Oh, okay.
Just that top. Yeah, that guy.
It'll just take a second though. There you go.
Perfect.
All right.
Who's going through this? Greg or Mitch?
I'll go first.
All right.
I'll hand it off to Greg. So just a construction update since the last time. I don't think we've provided a PowerPoint to you guys in a while, so we wanted to put together some site updates. So this is over at Fire Substation. This isn't a recent aerial. We've been limited due to all the weather that we've been having, but we did want to show. You can see this tarp has some masonry work going on inside of it for winter conditions, so they heat that space to allow work to continue. You can see the facade already on the west side of the building, and that white AVB will be the, I always mix up what brand of material we have here.
It's fiber cement.
Fiber cement panel that will be going on. Our roof is on, getting prepped for air handlers to be set in the near future. And not shown in this picture, which we might have, is windows are being installed as well. So we're actually going to be performing window testing to make sure that they're installed properly this week. Just another view from the other side of the building. So it's really coming along here. And again, these aren't as updated. So if you drive by today, it might look more like this than what those pictures are showing. This is just...
That's the snow.
Yeah, there's the snow. There's our temp heat going into the building. Windows are installed. The facade's installed with some soffit work for the facade to continue on. Greg, jump in whenever you want. Inside, we have the apparatus bay, so the garage doors went up, so you can see those from the outside when you drive by. And work continues here. This is all protected of the finished floor, and so everything's kind of almost complete in this area with some final touches going on. The apparatus bay, I'd say about 90% complete in there.
Those door bays look huge compared to the guy
Yeah.
in the front.
This is just showing some interior progress. So this is in the living quarters. The door frames have been painted. The wood doors have been installed. Hardware is installed. You'll see the pads are for the lockers that are going to be placed there as well. Flooring should start in the next couple weeks. So finishes are going throughout the building.
So there's going to be a concrete pad poured for the lockers?
There's a little base for them to land on. Yep.
What's the reason for that?
Just stability, structure, all of the above.
Something.
Two things. One, it gives you a toe kick, that raises them up off the floor as a toe kick, and two, it's somewhere for them to be fastened down to.
Yep.
Okay.
Relatively large lockers. So.
Got it.
Give them a sturdy base.
You might be used to metal bases on lockers. They tend to get kicked in and banged up pretty easy. So no kicking in concrete bases. So.
Nice.
All right, moving along to the public safety building over on Depot Street. This is an aerial. You can see the snow in this one. Almost, it's gone now and it's a mud pit, but this is the progress going. So we still have the center portion of the roof that's ongoing. Once we were able to clear the snow, they're up there getting going. You can see in the front center of the picture, this was where the geothermal vault is. The vault is where the connections were coming in from both sides of the wells. And you can see here that they were getting geared up to start the AVB, which is the vapor barrier on the exterior of the building. Still windows temped in here. Work on the east side interior is ongoing, framing, MEP, so all your mechanicals, electrical, and plumbing have started. And here's a rendering. Greg, I'm not sure if you wanted to touch on this.
Just a reminder of what this ends up looking like in the end, right? The building here is set forward to the street, and that's what most people see as they drive by. You get the sense of the project going on, but as a reminder, there's a whole nother set of buildings in the back, that are pretty extensive in size and scope. So just to make sure people don't forget that this project is, 3 buildings on this site, 2 major facilities plus the storage building. And as we look around the back side of the public safety building, you can see kind of where we've kind of folded the building in to accommodate all of the wetlands that are on both the east and the west sides of this site. And you'll start to see kind of how this the back area will start to shape up, become the parking for the departments in the back, public parking on the left-hand side of the image there. And just another view of kind of what's going on right close to the site. Mitch pointed out before the geothermal, so those geothermal wells, the network kind of extends around the building and under the public parking lot. And that vault, Mitch was pointing out, is really where all those things, kind of the spaghetti comes together a little bit and then comes in and out of the building. So we're taking 2 different networks of geothermal wells, coupling them together, and then bringing them in and out of the building to the mechanical. You can see here on the upper floor, rough has started for electrical and mechanical, plumbing and fire protection, so all the trades are in those areas. And on the right-hand side, kind of the a little bit of the behind the scenes work that really happens. This is your detention area and the processing area. So a dais there for the officer processing. There'll be spit guards and all sorts of fun stuff that end up in the detention area to make sure that officers can safely process detainees, make sure everybody gets in and out of there in a safe manner, and it's easily cleanable and maintainable. Jumping over, this is the sally port, so the portion that goes into that detention area. So you can see this is kind of the last part of the building that gets started and going through. So this is that last slab that went down. Gives you a big area. Up front, one of the rooms that I think is of particular interest here, the community room. So that room is, just as a reminder, playing kind of triple duty as a community room, an emergency emergency operations center, as well as a training facility for the departments. So, on the right-hand side, you can see that they're starting to get started with mechanicals in there. On the left, what that room kind of ends up looking like in the end. For folks who haven't maybe seen the site, just a reminder, we do have two precast concrete bridges on this site. Going back over the wetlands, bridges 1 and 2 are well underway, and they'll be remobilizing to finish up those bridges in the near future. Just kind of a rendering of what those really look like in the end, stretching back to DPW from the public safety building. And excitingly, the DPW has started in full scale, so we have steel being erected at the DPW. You can see the front here, which is really the start of the office area of the DPW, shops to the right along this mechanics bays all the way up to the right-hand side, and then that big box in the middle of the image is the large vehicle storage. So underground is pretty intense in these buildings. So this is electrical underground. So all the pipes are for electrical conduits running power throughout the building. And you can see steel erection is ongoing here. So this is a pre-engineered metal building, a little bit different than the public safety building, but what you're seeing is really a large set of space frames and a mezzanine kind of in the middle there that is where kind of storage and things happen. Just a reminder of what the building ends up looking like in the end. And just some reference pictures, I'll hand it back to Mitch.
Yeah, these are just some updates from the camera that we have just to show progress from December until the beginning of March here. And same over at Depot Street as well. So from middle of December all the way to middle of March, you can really see the progress that's been made. Although it kind of looks like not a lot on the outside, a lot has been going on the inside. We should mention that the contractor's working on a mock-up that will allow the progress on the exterior of the work to really get going as soon as that mock-up's approved. Back at DPW, just time-lapse here. So this is kind of a cool time-lapse because we still had exposed underground utility structures, and now we have foundations and steel going up. Just a reminder of schedule. So fire substation was March of 25 to May of 26. And then public safety and DPW was March 25 to December of 26. Just on the right side, you'll see the move-in dates, the occupancy dates. So July of 26 for fire substation and March of 27 for public works or public safety and DPW.
If we can move those ahead, we will do everything we can with the contractor and with all of the subs.
That's what these dates. Yeah.
Yep.
You want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. Anything we can do to assist them in getting the first responder fire substation in sooner, anything we can do to get public safety and DPW in sooner is going to be done. But contractually, substantial completion date is May 19th with punch list commissioning follow after. But like I said, we're going to work with all of the team members to see if we can move up those occupancy dates, because we know that all of the people in town have been roughing it for a long enough time that the sooner they get in, the better they're going to feel, and getting these buildings complete is going to be big thing for the town.
What about the landscaping and stuff on the substation?
So there's very little landscaping as compared to a school project or an athletic field. There's some sod, some seed, and just very minimal plantings to really bring it into the. But
Yeah, I mean, like anywhere else, we're dependent on the seasons. So obviously, there's going to be a time period where we're not fully in acceptance of those things. That's fairly normal for projects. The landscaper is contractually obligated to take those landscaping all the way through establishment. So there's a very detailed list of requirements and the specifications on what that means. You know, even maintaining the lawn until it's accepted is included in there. So I would say that, you know, when you bring a building into occupancy, that's always difficult, you know, when you're turning over and then also doing the landscaping at the same time. But we have a great department in the fire department to work with. DPW is great, and we have a good contractor, so I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to get that established even when occupancy and movement is happening.
could be a little bit different for public safety and DPW, being that it's a December
Right.
substantial. But there very well could be opportunity for them to get in there late August, September, if the schedule allows, if they're advanced enough on those buildings and do some of that stuff. We'll have to see when that time comes closer to the middle of summer, end of summer.
I think what I'm thinking in my head is the ribbon cutting, like when we'll be able to get in there and see it. And with the schools were ready in the spring, but they held us back. I will say that personally because I was eager. They're like, let's get in there.
Yep.
And they were like, no, we got to wait till all this stuff is planted and starting to bloom. And they were right. I get it afterwards because what it looked like originally when we thought it was awesome compared to what it really looked like the day of the ribbon cutting was night and day. So.
Absolutely. I think this one, fire substation being first, is going to be a little bit easier to obtain, just being a smaller scale and being less plantings. So,
Good.
should be
Really exciting.
Yeah.
I don't drive by the bigger one as often as I do the one by Hilliard's. And it's just, I can't believe how fast it's moving. It's really amazing.
Absolutely. So I think that's everything we had, so happy to turn it back over to you guys for questions or comments. Oh, and I think you guys have a vote for the change order as well.
Sure, I move to approve the Public Safety Building Fontaine Brothers change order number 7 in the amount of $32,582.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. All set, no
Thank
questions?
you, gentlemen.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Good to
being
see you
here.
guys.
Good to see you all. All right, next we have discussion and vote, contract for sale of 2020 Ram 5500 ambulance and 3 LifePak cardiac monitors to the city of Attleboro. Come on up, chief.
Chief.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. So tonight is we've done this with Dover previously. It's another sales agreement for a purchase of an ambulance we're no longer using and 3 cardiac monitors we're no longer using. And it'll go to the city of Attleboro, and the funds will go into the fire vehicle and equipment surplus account for use for further capital and surplus needs that we may have going forward.
So we're aware of this from previous discussions. Any comments, questions?
Nope.
Nope.
So I move to approve contract for sale of the 2020 Ram 5500 ambulance and 3 LifePak cardiac monitors to the city of Attleboro in the amount of $140,000.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
That was easy.
That was one of my quickest ones ever. That may be a record.
What else can we ask you while
Oh,
we have you
you got any
here?
questions?
You must be super excited about the buildings getting ready.
Cannot wait. It's kicking into the point. I've done this before, and it's getting to the point where we're starting to get really busy now because during the coming out of the ground portion, I'm not a contractor, so that's their job. But now that we're trying to outfit the building and making sure it's right and what we need, and looking for things we may have missed during design, and that's where we're in there a lot, talking about it a lot now. So it's the exciting time. Starting to see the finished product going in there. So yeah, very excited.
To get the tower out of the garage.
Yeah, exactly. It's the main antenna is going to be at the substation. I think I just saw today it's going to be the 2nd or 3rd week of April.
Oh, wow.
So that'll go up, and then we can start getting the radio equipment in there, and the building's going to come alive quickly. the substation. So
I
very
gotta
exciting
s-
times.
I've been looking at a lot of these building projects across the state, and the cost escalation factor is just unreal. You know, if we hadn't done this when we did, it probably would never have happened.
Agreed.
And I think it's one of the best things in my time on the board that we've done, because it takes so many buildings, you know, poorly performing buildings, getting rid of those, and this is just, it's amazing.
Change how we run overnight. It's going to be
Yeah.
absolutely amazing how we're going to be able to do business, which is great.
Those communities that, every community will inevitably have to do something. Like,
Right.
inevitably. I
Yeah.
don't care if it's in 5 years, 10 years, or in 20 years. They will have to do it. How they will do it, I have no idea. But, you know, doing it now saved the community hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
If we waited 5 years, 10, 20 years, it's $1 billion. So 100% stand by that.
And we need to thank the people in this town for supporting it. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, thank
Any
you
other-
so
Thank
much.
you, Chief.
And a fire Q&A for you tonight? Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it, Chief.
Take care.
All right. Next up, we have discussion and vote, contract DPW 2026-20, Capital Strategic Solutions, Community Outreach and Support for Waste Management Service, discontinuance.
Good evening. Dave Field, Director of Public Works. So I have several contracts. The first one is the Capital Strategic Solutions contract for community outreach and support. This is a contract not to exceed $45,000. This is really to help us with the communication, with the discontinuance of the town trash program. We don't want to have anyone left behind, so we want to make sure that everyone gets the notice. We're sending out letters now. Our current vendor, Waste Management's already sent out letters to everyone in the program, but this is going to be a kind of a continuing effort through the end of June to make sure everyone is aware of it and has the resources they need to choose a private vendor.
What happens if somebody doesn't find out about it or hear about it or look in, you've got notices that went out in people's trash bills, but if they didn't see it, does Waste Management just stop going to their house July 1st?
Yes.
that's when they'll
Yes,
notice?
they do need to sign up with a private vendor. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that that doesn't happen, that there's a person left behind
Right.
that doesn't know about it. So that's part of why we have Capital Strategic Solutions. They're a vendor that helped us several times on some big projects.
Yep.
The Five Corner Sewer Project and the PFAS, awareness and notification. So they've worked with us before, and we're going to lean on them again to help us really get that word out there.
Okay, terrific.
How will that look? Just a mailer, multiple mailers? I mean,
All of the above. So we have a hotline, an email, website that's going to be continually updated, our social media. So they're going to really run the behind the scenes on our website and social media and help us with the blast. And we're going to be continually revisiting to see where we are, both with Waste Management to see who's signed up, who hasn't, who has indicated they're going with another vendor, to really see what that looks like, and we'll evolve and adapt as we move forward. Best case scenario, everyone signs up with someone immediately, and there's really not much to do. But we do feel like, people tend to ignore
Yes.
communications, mailers, things like that. So we're going to try multiple avenues to try to get the word out to everyone. We'll be putting up message boards. We'll be putting up signage, anything we can. And that's why we've really ramped up the communications aspect to try to get the word out.
when you get closer to the end, is there any way for you to know who hasn't switched or cut off their service?
Yeah, well, we're going to work with all the vendors in town to try to figure out and try to compile that so we know and target additional, mailers, postcards, and other venues to try to get those people that haven't made a decision yet or haven't signed on with someone and really try to get those people the awareness. So.
I wonder do they do anything in person? I'm thinking of if there was a table in the lobby at town meeting before people got into town meeting with some information or pamphlets or something.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We could definitely look into, all the above.
Okay, great.
How many private haulers are authorized in town?
I believe there was between 5 and 7 previously. I think we're looking at maybe a couple more now, but pretty much the same amount that was before the discontinuance.
I signed up right away, and it was very, very easy to do.
Great.
Where did you sign up?
Waste Management. I just went.
You
with
just
Waste-
called Waste Management?
I got a letter from them, and I went online and signed up,
Okay,
and I don't have to change anything, just.
great.
No,
All right, so that's simple.
yeah.
So if you look in your bill, you'll see.
Thanks, Dottie.
I know I never look at those things myself either.
Might have to talk to my wife.
All right,
So I
well,
move to approve contract DPW 2026-20 Capital Strategic Solutions Community Outreach Support for Waste Management Service Discontinuance in the total amount of $45,000.
Second.
that's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you on that.
Thank you.
The next up is discussion and contract on DPW 2026-18, Liberty Chevrolet 2026 Silverado, 2500 and accessories.
Thank you. This is a capital request that was approved at November's town meeting. So this is the contract for the purchase under the Plymouth County Commissioner's contract, which is a statewide procurement, for $80,277 for a 2500 2026 Silverado for the Water Division.
Any questions?
Well, I move to approve contract DPW 2026-18 Liberty Chevrolet 2026 Silverado 2500 and accessories in the amount of $80,277.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. All right, the next one is discussion and vote on contract DPW 2026-04. It's a change order number 1 for C. Naughton on the Prospect Street water main. I think we had this on our last agenda, and we tabled it to this one for more information.
Yes, and I apologize that we had to revise something on that. So the revised change order number 1 is for a change of $25,210.31. Brings the total contract value to just over $1.3 million. There is approximately $3.1 million in capital funds currently available to complete this, to fund this change order. And this was just a change order to kind of close out that project with C. Naughton. It involved some additional work on Foundry Street and the restoration of traffic loops in Foundry Street. And again, the project went very well. We'll be doing final paving of that project likely this year.
C. Naughton has been a really good vendor to us.
They've been excellent. Yeah, ever since our first project with them on the Five Corners sewer project, they've been excellent.
Excellent. Any questions?
Traffic loop, oh, sorry. Oh, it's a traffic loop.
So that's they're basically loops that are embedded in the asphalt that detect vehicles, the presence of a vehicle, and then it actuates the signals. So at Prospect and Foundry, those are fully actuated signals. They'll stay green on Foundry unless a vehicle on Prospect triggers it. So during the construction, the water main was underneath those traffic loops. Wasn't anticipated in the original contract. We had to restore those. So it was done as part of this project.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Move to approve contract DPW 2026-04, change order number 1, C. Naughton, Prospect Street Water Main Replacement Project. Total cost is $25,210.31.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks,
David.
David.
David?
Discussion and consideration of changes to the town bylaw, section 44-2, for future annual town election dates.
Thank you, Dottie. Upon request of the board recently, we put a placeholder article on the warrant for the annual town meeting to consider changes to the dates for the annual town election. The bylaw was last changed in November 2020 at a special town meeting to allow the select board to move the date of the town election from the fourth Tuesday to April to any other day only upon scheduling a public hearing at which the public could see and hear deliberation to vote to schedule the coming annual town election during a date range of April 15th and April 30th. Since the change, there have been some difficulties with scheduling with the schools and school vacation, and so we're going back to revisit some alternatives. For the purposes of this discussion, my opinion is that the town election should follow the same format, where we have a set date, and then we have a date range that, upon a public hearing, we can change that to a different day. I think the set date, if we were to consider one, some options could be the second Tuesday in May, or we could do the third Saturday, follow me here, the Saturday before the third Monday in May. That way we could ensure that it's always before annual town meeting. And then we could have the start of that date range be April 27th. And that way we avoid the school vacation snafus, and we stay, that range seems to work. And we've checked with the school department to see if there would be any issues presented. Danielle reached out to the superintendent's office, and they have no concerns with that proposal. I will say that the election, as Danielle has said many, many times at this table, is driven by what's on the ballot. And so if you wanted to consider a Saturday is the more cost-effective option, and folks will show up either way. That, of course, is your decision to make. But you could decide whatever day of the week you wanted as the set, and then we could work within that range. Or you could scrap that whole idea and do something totally different. It's up to you. But Danielle is here to answer any questions or provide the data or context that you might need to be able to help formulate that warrant article, which we'll vote at a subsequent meeting. So we're just talking about it tonight. We're not voting to include and recommend right now. We're going to just talk about it so we can shape that, and then you'll be able to decide later on to include and recommend.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when we did this change before, we kind of just picked dates, right? And consequence that we didn't anticipate was that school vacation week was going to wrap around that more often than not and leave us with very minimal dates to choose from. So sitting and talking this over in advance of now, we've talked about, well, where do we want this to be? Do we want it to be closer to town meeting? We want it to be before town meeting, right?
Yeah.
But some places do it closer to town meeting and not in April, which would certainly help us with avoiding the April vacation. So we've tossed around a couple of dates. I think when we talked about it, one of the dates that came up was the Tuesday prior to town meeting, which basically would be the second Tuesday of May. That works from our standpoint. Some of the questions were, can these things be too close? For us, doing it after town meeting would be a problem. Doing a Monday town meeting and then a Tuesday election would be problematic for my team and setup and all the other things that we do in advance. But the Saturday before would not be a problem. So that's where the Saturday prior to the third Monday in May would work. But, we came up with dates before it and it seemed clean, 15 to 30, right? I've done a 14-year analysis of when these dates will be, and the 27th through May 19th is the time frame, but we would want to be really clear that it's prior to town meeting and not after town meeting.
So it could still be a Saturday or Tuesday.
So yeah, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Sean is saying is maybe we don't keep the fourth Tuesday in April as our date. Instead of just looking at a range, we say, hey, why don't we pick something that's closer to town meeting, further away from that, because most of the time that's always the Tuesday following April vacation, which in all honesty, we talked about this at the last public hearing, is also not the best date. People are just getting back from vacation. They're not engaging with anybody who's on the ballot. So if you wanted and you liked that idea, then two of the proposed dates would be either the Saturday before town meeting or the Tuesday before town meeting, and then putting a range for a public hearing that would be somewhere between the 27th and the 19th. A cleaner time would be to say something like the 27th, April 27th is the earliest date that we would do, and the latest date would be the Saturday prior to the third Monday in May. Not confusing at all, right?
It's so confused. I'm so tired.
You look a little tired.
Coffee's giving me palpitations. My head's going to explode.
We need a flip
I
chart.
just need to know. So Saturday, so we could choose Saturday or Tuesday before the town election.
But then
And
each
we're not
year,
making that decision
even
right
say
now.
we
Town
picked
meeting, yes, sorry.
Tuesday, we could vote in advance. This year, we want to make it Saturday as long as it's in that same
Right.
window, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I
Or
think
the
that
Tuesday.
the plan would be that we keep the public hearing so you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
That's worked out well for us.
Because there might be some year that for some reason, or we might want the
Never.
flexibility of if we pick Saturday and that doesn't seem to be great, or there's a lot of complaints, then we can
Right.
put it back to
Right.
Tuesday.
So we still have freedom.
100%, yeah.
And
It
in
just
this
shifts
meeting, we're
every
not
time.
deciding what it actually is. We're deciding we're going to give this window.
Yeah, we're going to change the window
And the
And we
date,
can change the
potentially the
times,
date.
right?
and the date.
Yeah, the times, you always get to make a change, right? So I would recommend we make the times early enough for people to understand. You're talking about the day of, right?
Right.
The length of time. The law requires only 4 hours up to 13 hours. So for a local election, you can do anywhere from 4 to 13. When you make it a Tuesday, you're pretty much saying you're going to do a 13-hour day.
Yep.
Because obviously you want people in the morning and you want people at night. So you don't have the flexibility. And on the years that you don't have any contested races and you get a 2.3% turnout, it's a lot of money and a lot of hours without, a lot of buck for your return there.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
if you did a Saturday, you would have the flexibility to say, hey, we have a contested race, or we have another override, and we want to make it a 13-hour day. Technically, you don't have to make that decision until you sign the warrant. But again, I would probably recommend somewhere between the public hearing and maybe the deadline to have people take out papers to make a decision of what you want for time. But that gives you the flexibility. I did, as Sean noted, get in touch with the DPW, the schools from both the superintendent and Tony and also Kelly. And everybody said that they didn't have any regular things that happened on those dates. So it's not like there's always a play or there's always some type of event that this would be problematic for them. So they didn't have any problem with that at all. If we were to choose a Saturday, if you are thinking of going to Saturdays from time to time, there's some choice for them that having it set makes it easier in their scheduling with other events happening.
I'd really like to get public feedback on this because I feel very strongly that it shouldn't be during the school day. I just think it's a security risk. It's just my thing. I
I'm the
know that
opposite.
other people. I know that you're the opposite. I know that people from the school committee have been the opposite. They want it on the Tuesday, but I'm just curious.
Well, I did
what
speak to them
everybody-
as well.
Yeah.
And so because I know that you did receive an email from them, and I actually did have, at Jackie's request, we did have a Zoom meeting with Alicia and Jackie from the school department. And they weren't opposed to a Saturday or recommending Tuesdays. They're recommending really that we get away from school vacation week. That was the outcome of that conversation that day. I do think Jackie had some personal feelings about which days might be better and things, but ultimately they confirmed that their issue was more about us addressing the school vacation.
I think we can all agree on that.
I
think
agree, yeah.
All of us already did it.
Yeah.
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 The only thing we start talking about later in the spring is you have athletic events on a Saturday. or
Saturdays have
could-
been easier for us than the Tuesdays were previously. I think you remember
do.
for parking and
Right,
anything
but
out in the parking.
My
Yeah.
concern is the public.
Yeah, not for me.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I want to offer the best for everybody. And you're always going to have a handful of people who are going to say, I couldn't get there because I had an event on Saturday. And another who said, I couldn't get there because
Of course.
my kids have events and I'm busy, right, on Tuesdays. So that's where, thank goodness, we have vote by mail and, all the different avenues to vote that we do have. And we're not going to please everybody, obviously. But I do think that it would be a good idea to push a date that's in May for your election and that way you're staying away from the
Spring vacation.
the spring vacation.
I wonder if we could do a survey online to see what people think,
We could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
on social media.
yeah. I mean, we did the one about the,
Within the 4:27 to 5:15 timeframe, is that what you're talking
Would
about?
you prefer Tuesday or Saturday,
Yeah,
yeah.
essentially?
There you
Yeah,
go.
Within those two dates.
We're happy to put something together for that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of thought went into this. It's a tough decision,
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty slam dunk, but this one, I think there's a lot of opinions on.
The only thing I
sides.
think that the survey could miss, there's the nuance of, I agree, the Tuesday right after spring vacation's a bad day because people are absolutely getting their kids back in the routine and your mind is not on anything else. And
Yeah.
so and then, like you said, and candidates haven't had a chance in the
To
last
engage with anyone,
10
yeah.
days to engage with anybody.
Yeah.
So I like the Tuesday before town meeting or Saturday. That's Saturday, Tuesday, that timeline.
Yeah,
And with the ability to then create a public hearing and make a change depending on what's happening.
Yeah, where if you put out a survey, you say between the 27th and May 15th, 4/27, 5/15, people aren't gonna think about that first date being so close to.
well, maybe we could just put it out with the Tuesday or the Saturday before. We'll have the flexibility in case something comes up,
Right.
but let's just ask that question.
Yeah, right, then you get an idea, like you said, between
Yeah.
a weekday and a weekend.
it's like a one question survey that asks whether the second week of, or that's where it becomes a little complicated.
I think it's also really important, though, to include in that the hours, because if you say Saturday 9 to 3 or Tuesday 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., that's different, because Saturday 9 to 3 for families, they're gone. Well, not entirely. Of course, there's going to be some there, but I don't want them to think, oh, Saturday the polls are open 7 to 8, because that's not going to happen. If we open the polls on Saturday, it will not be a 13-hour day.
It could be. So
It
you get that
depends.
choice,
If
right?
it's a non-contested,
Well, yeah, so you have latitude in the future, yeah.
Yeah.
So then you would have, you have
switch
that
it,
always
yeah.
now too. You can always decide what the time frame should be based on what's going to be on the ballot. And that
Yeah.
can be done early enough because we know how many candidates have taken out papers early enough to
But we've
do
never
that.
had an election on a Saturday that the
Wasn't-
hours weren't 9 to 3. They were always been.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right. So it's kind of an unfair survey in that regard, and it's really just based on what people have known, which
Exactly.
wouldn't be at all
Myself
what we're
included.
doing. So it's okay to do that, but you know, it may be tainted slightly because people don't know. We're asking them a Tuesday that's not a Tuesday they're ever used to, and a Saturday with hours that could be extended. And you know, that's been if you don't think the Saturdays are enough hours, let's make it an 8-hour instead of a 6-hour day.
'Cause we
on
were doing 10
Saturdays.
to 4, right?
We were doing 10 to 4. I mean, that was, if you think that's a problem, I know I've paid a lot of attention in the 6 years that we did it. There's nobody running in at that last hour.
No.
But you might get people
But on a
earlier.
Tuesday there is.
No, there isn't anymore. Not with vote by mail. Honestly, the last hour, if I get somebody, and this is for a state election too and a presidential, 7 o'clock we still get some people. But by 8 o'clock, I'm standing at the door because I want that last person to be able to get in. That doesn't happen anymore. It's just people have too many other options that they don't need to do that run and rush at the end. If you wanted 8 hours or a longer day on Saturday, as your general, all the time, we're going to do 8 hours instead of 6 hours that we've been doing, I would push more towards the earlier time in the day and not the end, because from what I've seen is we don't really have anybody at the last. The last hour is slower. Just from what I'm seeing, but you never know. Again,
I know. It's like anybody can
It's-
choose an argument in any direction and
Yeah.
like and stand
But
behind
that's-
it, right?
well, we have-
unfortunately, that's kind of how it works in elections. But there's so many options.
works like
Yeah.
that on everything we vote on.
I
That-
know. Well, yes, but like I could sit here and argue against that, and I could argue against myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other things, I'm gonna die on that hill. But on this, I could see so many sides.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, well, getting public feedback, and if people are not on social media and they want to email the select board, our email address is on the website, but it's selectboard@easton.ma.us.
So do we want to do with the times or just do the dates?
For the survey.
Yeah.
Do these dates and then do times, like do it as 2 questions. It could
And I'll leave the caveat that it's proposed, like hypothetical times,
Yeah.
because the board has the ability to be able to change the times.
Yeah, but if
So-
we're getting people's attention on this topic, we might as well
Yeah.
ask.
Okay, got it. We'll work together on that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Danielle.
very much.
Good night.
All right, next we have the budget change memo. Before we go on to that, because that'll be a little bit longer, did you have something specific that you wanted to say, or that
No,
you just wanted to watch? Okay, if you were waiting for something specific, I didn't want you to have to wait, I would have moved it up for you, so, thank you.
if at some point I do, I will address it.
Okay, thank you for being here. All right, Sean,
So
you're up.
we are just pulling up the, there we go. Okay, so we've heard a lot about the budget over the past couple of months. We've brought it up as a standing item, but the last real full-throated budget presentation that we had was on January 12th when Connor was still here. So this is budget change memo number 1, and it reflects the updated fiscal conditions and policy fiscal conditions and policy decisions impacting the 2027 operating budget. The town continues to experience significant structural pressures driven by rising fixed costs, including employee benefits, insurance, contractual obligations, while recurring revenue growth remains constrained by Prop 2.5 levy limits and minimal growth in state aid. The change memo submitted to you just last Friday outlines the changes to the preliminary operating budget that Connor had presented to you on January 12th, and this includes updates to our projected revenues, adjustments to our proposed expenditures, and updated numbers related to our assessments based on the governor's proposed budget. As you all know, the board voted on March 9th to place 2 questions on the annual town election ballot for an operating override. The main focus of this presentation will be on the non-override budget, assuming that neither of the questions are approved by voters on April 28th. Any questions that do get approved will be added to the budget after the election, but before town meeting on May 18th, and we'll talk a little bit about that in subsequent slides. Through a number of adjustments to our revenue and expenses that have played out over the past few months since the preliminary budget was first presented, we were able to eliminate the previously projected preliminary deficit of about $430,000, resulting in a balanced budget for the first time in a long time. I was talking with Wendy earlier. It was probably since fiscal year 08 or 09, somewhere thereabouts, without the use of either free cash or stabilization, that one-time money that we're really trying to get away from. And over the next few slides, we'll outline those adjustments, and we'll start on the revenue side. And with that, I'll turn it over to Wendy.
Okay, thank you. So the first adjustment is an adjustment to taxation. The portion of the tax levy that's raised to cover debt exclusions for school construction and municipal facilities, that could be adjusted downward by $79,841. This represents a difference between the estimated and actual debt service related to the recent bond and note issue that was approved by the board on January 26th. So that's one adjustment. Second adjustment is state aid. State aid changed based on the governor's budget. There were a number of categories that changed. In particular, state aid was revised downward for Chapter 70 aid. The original preliminary budget assumed $100 per pupil, which was actually less than what we received this year. So this year we received $150. Legally, the state's only required to give us $30 per student, but this year it was $150. We didn't think that, assuming $150 would be prudent in the fiscal 27 budget, so we put in an estimate of $100. But the governor's budget proposal came out with only $75. Hopefully that will change as the budget progresses through the House and the Senate, but we have to make an adjustment for that. In addition to that category, we also, the unrestricted general government aid, that's like the second largest portion of state aid, that just went up slightly by $8,000, which is basically a 2.49% increase over the previous year. Charter school reimbursement revenue increased by $97,734, and then some other categories, were adjusted as well. Overall, that charter school reimbursement offsets the decrease in state aid for Chapter 70, and so it is a net increase in the revenue side, the receipt side, of $12,528. However, on the expense side, with the state assessments, that actually increased by $58,407. So it basically wipes out that adjustment.
And those increases, like we're talking $12,000 on a $125 million budget. Like,
yeah. I mean, if you net the state aid all together, it was overall we had to do a reduction because of the increase in the assessments. Local receipts, we've adjusted those downwards a little bit just to be a little bit more conservative in our projections. So, after we remove the ambulance receipts and we take that out of the local receipts and we factor in this adjustment, of $29,825, we still have a growth factor of 6.34% on local receipts, which is higher than the other revenue categories. And then other financing sources and reserves, we had put in an amount of $144,120 in the preliminary budget. Non-exempt debt on the school side was projected to increase by that for the school security project, but then when the actual figures came in for the bond issue, that pretty much went away, so we took that out of the budget as well.
oh, good.
That went away because the interest rates were lower than we anticipated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then on the expense side, I'll just run through the adjustments by category. For speaking of debt, for debt and interest, total debt service has been reduced by $166,571 through a combination of adjustments to exempt and non-exempt debt. We were able to make this reduction following the large issuance of bonds that you may recall from the board's January 26th meeting, much of which went to the municipal building project, which included lower than anticipated interest. For benefits and health insurance, this was one of the biggest unknowns. We were, thankfully, we were able to decrease our projection by $448,684 from our preliminary estimates, but that was based on preliminary projections from the GIC, which was 9.1% increase. But following the GIC's vote on March 5th, our rates come out to be 8% for active plans and 5.4% for Medicare plans, which is fantastic. I know some of my counterparts in other communities have had 10 to 12 and higher increases with other vendors. So for us, we're considered to be pretty lucky. But that's really sick to say that 8% is a good place to be, where we've just seen a steady rise, and that's most of why we have a structural revenue deficit, because we're trying to contend with this. On the property liability and workers' comp insurance side, premiums from Maya, our insurer, also were finalized at rates below projection, allowing for an additional $126,202 in reduction, and that's due in part to our favorable loss ratio. That we were so happy to have that conversation with our rep or a couple of months ago. That we were able to have that reduction, and he sees us as a good community, and we're very pleased with our loss ratio. Okay. Next slide. In terms of regional education, both our assessment from Southeastern Regional and Bristol Aggie both went down for a total of $170,402, which can be attributed to lower enrollment of Easton students at both of those schools. Our state and county assessments, which are based on the governor's proposed budget, on the other hand, have increased by about $58,000. This includes things like our assessment to OCPC, the Mosquito Control Project, our Air Pollution District, the MBTA. That's what's included in state and county assessments.
Those increases, though, are very small. I think that the regional planning agencies, I think it's only 2.5%.
Yeah, it's tiny.
That they can increase.
Yeah, we had originally forecasted just a small increase to assessments, because really what drives increases and decreases are the charter school assessments.
Do we know how many, if any, students get, because I know it's very competitive, like Southeastern Regional has a lot
waitlisted.
What's that?
Are you asking if they get waitlisted?
Yeah, and how many don't get in that?
Yeah, I don't have that number.
It's a big wait list,
Yeah.
though. I know that. For that and the agricultural school.
As the number goes down, I'm just curious how many kids don't get in that wanted to be there, right? And
yeah,
we see enrollment reduced, but maybe they didn't get chosen.
Well, enrollment is based on how many students from Easton actually go there, right? It's
Correct.
A direct correlation.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. How many, because it is so competitive, it's 400 kids per class, and I think they get well over double that number that apply every year.
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's great that it decreased, but the bad news is that's because Easton kids aren't going there, right? So it's a double-edged sword on that.
The largest part of our budget, Easton Public Schools, speaking about education, have submitted their budget figure to us after the school committee's public hearing that they held on March 12th, followed by a vote to finalize that budget total at $50,096,817, which represents a 2.8% decrease from fiscal year 2026. Next slide. Continuing on, we have updated numbers for some of our town's departmental operating budgets, resulting in an adjustment of about $94,000, which includes restoring the Finance Committee's reserve fund balance to its customary $100,000, some contractual adjustments for the Select Board related to the transition in the Town Administrator's office. Our rate for town council is increasing for the first time in a while, and our collective bargaining and personnel reallocations within the DPW following the ratification at a recent board meeting of that one-year extension with this be a DPW unit. For enterprise funds, the discontinuation of townwide municipal solid waste and recycling services, as Dave had talked about earlier today, results in a $2,071,877 decrease in both the revenue and expenditure side. And included in the proposal is $100,000 from surplus to address the recycling cart issue and any other residual costs that come from that discontinuation in FY27. And then just to note, Water Enterprise Fund had a modest increase of $1,500.
That's a weird number.
I know, yeah. The combined effect of all the revenue and expenditure adjustments totals about $430,000, so $430,626, fully offsetting the preliminary FY27 deficit and resulting in a balanced budget. Importantly, no free cash, no stabilization. Budget remains structurally balanced for this fiscal year, but I will say that that doesn't mean we won't face challenges in subsequent fiscal years for the reasons that I've mentioned in previous slides. Staffing and service levels remain consistent with the non-override budget that was presented on January 12th by Connor. There are no additional cuts or no changes to service from what was presented on January 12th. And as we look towards the next couple of months, we still have some ground to cover to refine the budget before we get to town meeting. We're waiting on proposals, as Wendy had mentioned, from the House and Senate for the state's budget, which I know conversations are currently underway. Any additional state aid that we may receive will go towards offsetting our snow and ice budget, which after a very difficult winter is hovering around $470,000. We have a great relationship with our state legislators, as you all know, and we have leveraged those lines of communication to advocate for Easton's funding priorities in the FY27 budget. Dottie and I recently penned a letter to each of our state legislators outlining those priorities, which include pushing for increases in UGA, unrestricted general government aid, maintaining minimum aid at a 150 per pupil figure, and opposing the changes to the RMV marking process, which is a crucial mechanism for us to be able to encourage payment of delinquent motor vehicle excise tax bills. In terms of collective bargaining, we do still have 5 unsettled union contracts that are up as of June 30th of this year that we will be negotiating once our new town administrator joins us. I'm not sure how far we'll get before town meeting, but we do have budgeted funds for collective bargaining reserves in anticipation of settling those contracts. And although tonight's presentation was focused on the non-override budget, it is important to mention that another outstanding factor, and that is the override. At your last meeting on March 9th, you voted to place 2 questions on the annual town election ballot. One for $1.45 million to hire additional police officers and firefighters, associated benefits for those employees, and other police and fire training and expenses. And then the second question for $700,000 for public works for roadway and sidewalk improvements, as well as 2 full-time DPW special equipment operators and associated benefits. The menu style of override that will be before voters will show these 2 distinct questions, each with specific requests that I just mentioned, and only the questions that receive the majority approval will move forward and be included in our budget when we go to town meeting. So depending on how the votes fall, you could have a scenario where 0, 1, or both questions are approved. It just depends on what gets the appropriate amount of votes.
So if both of those are approved, if I'm remembering correctly, it averaged about $20 a month of an increase in your tax bills?
Yeah, pull up the specifics. Do you have it at your fingertips? I don't want to miss.
I just had that.
I know, I just had the number up, but I'll pull up our web page. So all this information, just for folks that are listening right now, is available on our web page at easton.ma.us/override.
Yeah, it was about $12.55 for the public safety and about $16.04
$6
for the public works.
Correct. And of course, my internet's going very slow. Craig is ready to go out and hit the streets. But that is accurate for the monthly figure. I know that the public safety building was that equated to $150 a year based on the median home price, which is around $684,000. And of course, the internet's not working for me now, so I apologize. But actually, here we go. So question 1 for the public safety median single-family tax impact would be $150.58 per year, $37 a quarter, $12 a month. And then for public works, $82 a year, $20 a quarter, $684 per month. based on that median home value. Okay, where are we? We're back. Okay.
Well, this is what people asked for, something that was more palatable, a smaller amount.
In choice.
There's a lot of
This is much
bang for the
smaller.
buck with this, I think.
Yeah, this
You
is
know,
$5
for-
million shorter than what we put before voters last year. And this time it's broken out, so there's even more choice than there was before. There's always been choice, but there's additional choice here to be able to break it out. I think it's pretty clear what you get for those two specific amounts.
Funding's very specific.
Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so just like last year's override, voters must approve the questions at 2 points in time for the override to go into effect. Unlike last year, we're having the ballot vote first on April 28th in conjunction with the annual town election, which is another change because we had a standalone election last time. This is in conjunction with our annual town election, where candidates for local election are going to be on the ballot as well. The vote at the ballot is for voters to consider a permanent increase to the tax levy by a specific dollar amount. And if any of those questions, like I just said, are approved, the levy limit will increase by that amount, but no money has been appropriated at that point. Like I said, the ballot will go first. We'll know what, if any, additional amounts can be added to the budget, and then that's what will be presented to voters on May 18th at town meeting, as opposed to last year where we did town meeting first and we had two budgets to pick from, and this time it'll just be a lot cleaner and there'll just be the one. Let's see, next slide, please. So to wrap things up here, the adjustments presented here tonight allow the budget to balance, but as I mentioned earlier, the town's underlying structural challenges do still remain. Our departments continue to operate with inadequate staffing levels, and this non-override budget does not restore services eliminated in the FY26 budget in light of the failed override. This budget reflects the town's prudent financial management and demonstrates improved cost certainty, but long-term pressures, like we've talked about tonight, including skyrocketing healthcare, pension assessments, OPEB liabilities, and the fact that we are under-resourced as an organization, are long-term pressures that both the town and the school side face in their operations. The proposed override, if approved, would give us some breathing room and bring back some of the critical positions that were cut in recent years, and would reduce risks of further cuts in future years. But let me be clear that this would just stabilize these departments and in the proposed override, but it would not restore them anywhere near where they need to be. They're still multiple positions down from where they were after having been cut so deep in the past couple of years. And it's not where they should be to operate in a community of this size. Next slide. And as we look towards the next couple of months, I just want to flag a couple of important dates that we've already mentioned here tonight. April 8th is the joint Select Board and Finance Committee budget hearings, where departments will present their budgets to that joint meeting. As also as mentioned many times in this presentation, April 28th is when we have the annual town election, which will include the two operating override questions. And then on May 18th is when we will consider the full budget proposal. And we have plenty of information about all of these events on our websites. We have one specific to the budget, easton.ma.us/budget, one specific to the override, which is also referenced on the budget page, and that's /override, and then finally town meeting, which has all of them, easton.ma.us/townmeeting. With that, I am happy to take any questions the board may have.
Jamie?
No questions. Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Wendy.
It's very thorough. I do have one quick question. I saw that the assessment was decreased on insurance, but how much did insurance go up as a percentage? You might not have that off the top of your head. I understand it's like hyper-specific.
The overall reduction in the premium was like 2.3% from Maya.
Over last year or over what you predicted?
Right.
No, they reduced it was on the renewal. They reduced our premium from the previous year.
So we're paying less this year than we were last year.
Unless there were some adjustments. There were some adjustments for valuations, but overall, yes.
Well, that's surprising. Okay.
Greg?
No questions. Very comprehensive. Very appreciated very much, Wendy. Sean?
I have some comments, but I don't want it to take away from the congratulations on getting this to balance, especially this early. And a lot of it came from very early start. I want to thank the budget subcommittee for their involvement in this as well, and the partnership with the schools. I'm frustrated that the state budget, and I don't know if people realize this, the state budget gets voted well after our budget. So we have to, by law, have a balanced budget for town meeting. But they might not come back with a budget until well after our town meeting. And that can change these. The closer we get to the margins, the less flexibility we have should something come up. We never used to, back in the day, have a fall town meeting, and now we have a fall town meeting to kind of play catch up for those fluctuations that may have happened. I don't love that. I'm not saying anything bad about our legislators. I know that they work hard for us, but organizationally, the legislature as a whole needs to do better. We're required to meet our deadlines. And last year was like the longest it ever took to come through, and it's just it's not good. The other thing is, this is great that we were able to come to this, but I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that last year we used more than 30% of our stabilization to close the budget. There was no way we were going to be able to use any stabilization this year if we did have a discrepancy. And the fact that the cuts were so deep last year, that's where the recalibration of the school budget came from. So it's not magic. It was hard work that was done that really fell on the backs of our staff, our employees, and I want to just acknowledge that for people. That we're still at a really hard place getting here. It's hard because I feel like I'm sounding negative saying it, and that's not what I want to say. But I do want to be cognizant of the fact that it's been a really hard year. For us and for the residents. A lot of people have been complaining about the different things that were cut, and so we still need to hope for better days ahead. This is a great starting point. It's never happened on my time on the board that we've had a balanced budget, and I feel a little bad that Connor's not here to be a part of this.
He laid the groundwork for it, though.
He did. He worked really hard for this, but it's also a good way to start with the new town administrator, at a level playing field with this right now. So
I think it's really important that to reiterate what you and Sean were talking about in terms of the contact with our state legislators, because to go from, for example, Chapter 70, $150 last year, and now she's talking about 75. And I never can figure that one out. She knows what the issues are about schools in every city and town, and yet she continues to reduce that. And hopefully the legislature will put it back to the 150 that we had this past year. And UGA, the unrestricted, is always, that's what, 12% of we used to be 25% of our budget, now it's 12%, and costs have gone up, so it really is not worth that as much as it should be. I think it's important that we continue to have those conversations.
And then it puts the pressure on us, the local government, to have to find new ways to do it, meaning raising fees and doing things that aren't popular. So we take the hit for it rather than the state. Right?
Absolutely.
Well, and then we take the blame for it
That's
as if it's
what I
overspending. Yeah. And, what is it, $75 per pupil per year? If for anybody paying attention, for the state pays for my son to go to school 42 cents a day. 42 cents per day the state pays. That's outrageous on its face. I mean, for people who get really frustrated and they point to us or the schools and say, where's the money? It's like, look at the state. That's where you need to look. So I just want to air my frustration on the 42 cents a day the state kicks in for my son to go to school. Thanks.
Yeah, it's not a lot. I mean, the increase is $427,850 on over $100 million budget. It's 2.88% of an increase. I mean, everything's going up by a lot more than that today.
Shameful.
And so between that, where else can you go? Local receipts just are not a big enough piece of our revenue to make that much of a difference. The only other place
Even
is
if it
property
stayed
tax.
level, even if it stayed level with increasing costs, it would still be a hit. but they're decreasing it with increasing costs, so it's a double hit.
That's right.
And I know our legislators are working really hard. We're meeting with them. They are trying to advocate for it. But, you know, even with the Student Opportunity Act, which we're not eligible to get any of that money, so that was the millionaire's tax. That money goes to education and transportation, but it only goes to qualifying communities, mostly cities. And even the cities are, you know, I'm on one of the policy committees with the MMA, and there's some mayors on that, and they're saying they're not getting enough money for education. So nobody's getting enough, you know. So I think the state needs to find another way to look at where they're allocating resources.
And I know we're saying the state, but a lot of this pressure is coming from the federal government, right? You decided to cut the education department, you started to cut, you know, a lot of the federal funding that, you know, these states in Massachusetts were relying on has now absolutely put pressure on the state budget.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Significantly. So while we're saying the state,
Yeah, I'm still saying the
they
state.
lost.
Right,
a
but
lot
this is not new. This has been going on for decades.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is and it is the state how they allocate money.
Right, but we did see a
Federals
significant increase
exacerbated it.
last year, right? We saw it go to 150, right? And what was it prior to that? The high was 100.
Yeah, it was 104. Yeah,
Because
the
we
year
were at 70.
before.
That was a jump from 70.
Yeah.
So it went from 70 to
That was a
102,
jump from
104.
30. That was a jump from 30. It went
Going
to
back,
104.
however
Yeah.
far you want to go back. Yep.
Yep.
So just in the last few years, we were making some headway. Not saying that 150 is 82 cents a day, not 42, but or 84. But that was the trend, and then all of a sudden it gets cut back to 75, which looks very regressive, and a ton of the pressure coming from the federal side.
Yeah, that's true.
And priorities, right? Because we found money to
Absolutely.
do other things on the federal side that seem to be a priority for this administration, where education does not seem to be a priority. Healthcare does not seem to be a priority.
A lot of things were a priority for many years before that were, you know, frankly not towards municipalities or states. They were elsewhere,
Yeah.
not
so-
even in this country.
Yep. And right now
I
we're
don't really
seeing
wanna go
a
down that
focus
road,
on we're seeing a loss in focus on what I consider to be.
I just wish
priorities.
that the federal would take care of us, the state would take care of us. That would be nice. That they turn back towards the municipalities, and our tax money goes back towards us. That would be nice. I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
Well, we just have to keep working at it, and if people, you know, people always say, you know, at our meetings, when we have the public meetings, when we were talking about the budget, you know, are you talking to your legislators? So that's why I thought it was important to bring that up. Not only are we talking to them, but the public should, they can email them very easily.
Right.
And they do respond to people's emails, so, you know,
Great point.
Easton, step up, get off social media and get onto your
Go
email.
go become a delegate.
Go to your state
Exactly.
legislature, go to the federal, and make your voice known.
Yeah, no, they welcome it. You know, we do too. We hardly ever get any emails about things like that. So we welcome the emails as well. We respond to all of them, and you know, I think this is like a reset year. And I look at all the other towns. I'm on an email that talks about all of the towns in the South Shore area. There's some towns that are in dire straits right now with big,
It's unsettling.
thousands of, millions of dollars of a deficit right now for a small town that they've never had before, and
Huge problem.
It's everywhere. I don't know anyone that's really like having an easy time balancing their budget.
Yeah.
So this was a lot of work. Thank you very much.
That's right, and a lot of sacrifice on a lot of people from all of your departments.
Yeah.
A lot of sacrifice and a lot of people, and the people that we lost to get to this point, which was a lot of talent that we've also lost, which we will not just get back next year or the year after, even with an infusion, should we get it.
Right.
of Cash.
Takes
So,
years to build back.
That's right.
So.
All right. Well, thank you, Sean. Great job. I love the graphics in that presentation, by the way.
That's what Wendy said.
Yeah, it was really fresh looking.
And it wasn't AI. So
I
just saying.
appreciate you saying
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
There's a
I
lot of
let the
people
record
take
show
credit
it was
for
not
that.
AI. Just kidding.
The next thing we have is a nomination for the Inspector of Animals for Jordan Holbrook. We do this every year, and it's our obligation to vote for that. And Jordan's been doing an amazing job. People
Yeah.
love her, so.
So I move to nominate Jordan Holbrook to the Inspector of Animals as recommended by Kristen Kennedy.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor?
Do we need a roll call vote?
Roll call.
Yeah.
Stebbins Holbrook.
Lamb Holbrook.
Full Janetti Holbrook.
Bodger Holbrook.
Thank you, Mark. Nice catch. The next thing is an acceptance of a resignation, Gary Tuagra, for the Cemetery Commission with a term expiring June 30th, 2026. We want to thank Gary for his service over the years.
So I move to accept the resignation of Jerry Tuagra from the Cemetery Commission with a term expiring June 30th, 2026.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb, and it's a roll call.
Stebbins Taraga.
Lamb Taraga.
Full Janetti Taraga.
Bodger Tuagra.
Great. Acceptance of the minutes of March 4th and March 9th, 2026.
So move, Bodger.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb, all in favor? Unanimous. Town Administrator notes.
Just one, it's already been briefly touched on by Dave Field. I just wanted to call attention to the resources we have available for folks wondering about the discontinuation of the trash program. We do have a web page that's up that we've been updating with FAQ as we've gotten questions that have come through. We're just adding to it as we hear recurring questions, but that's available on the town's website, and also a direct link to that would be on the homepage of the website, and the direct link is easton.ma.us/trash. And so that has a list of all the waste haulers, it has FAQ about the program discontinuation, what do you do on July 1st, all that information is available on that webpage. And that'll be in addition to all the mailers and signage, physical and digital and otherwise, that we'll be engaging in over the next couple of months with CSS. That's it.
Select Board notes. Anybody?
None.
None.
I just want to call out the Human Rights Committee. We had a meeting at the Trinity Lutheran Church. It was a training session. It was called Better Conversations, Better Connections, Navigating Differences with Confidence. And it was very well attended. I want to thank the members of the Human Rights Committee for putting it on. And I want to thank Trinity Lutheran Church for hosting it. They're always so welcoming. And I really appreciate that. And I think that all the participants really benefited from it, enjoyed it, and learned some things. So I thank the Human Rights Committee for putting that on.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Well, we're going to go into executive session. I'll ask for a motion to go into executive session under Purpose 2, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body. We will make that motion to enter executive session, not to return to open
So
session.
move, Bodger.
Second.
That's Bodger and Lamb, and a roll call vote.
Stebbins, yes.
Lamb, yes.
Full Janetti, yes?
Bodger, yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, ECAT, for being here, and have a good week.